I just turned on the recording, just so you know.
Fine.
So basically, Brad, what I like to do at times, not always, but I see that some of the slides that I run during the class, they may not be as updated, or they could be, like you saw, there was some repetitive slides. It's just that they just sort of make it more like a mechanical process for us, which I don't approve of. And occasionally it's just, make some changes or add some material. And for that reason, I was a little bit late to put those into your Dropbox. And now that I've done and completed all those, I'm just going to show you what are those slides going to be like. So you can recognize that this is what you have to focus on. So there are 5 of these which I have prepared, and I'll open one at a time. It is going to give you an idea. Besides, it's going to be in your Dropbox. So I'm going to replace it, so there's no confusion. But you can just recognize that this is how we'll be running the course, or at least the module 2. That's what's going to be starting. The one that I'd like to do today, it's about the context and search for internet or intent translation. It is this slide. That's how it's going to look like. So it's not just one big slide or PowerPoints, but rather Tristan is here. Tristan was actually the only one that showed up on Monday. Hi, Tristan. He's joining us. Hi, Tristan. Hello there. Good to have you. Sorry about Monday, but here we are continuing. Brad is here. Still waiting for others, but it's just 3 of us for now. I'm introducing some PowerPoints which I'd like to put in your Dropbox. And I was explaining to Brett that this is how it's going to look like. It'll be like segmented instead of one large bunch of PowerPoints. I've separated them, and these are the ones that I'm introducing. This is let me just fix my video quickly, and then should be all good to go. So this is one of them. The topic would be context in search for intent translation. After this one, we are going to do search with keywords and search phrases. That's going to be the next set of slides. The third one would be search queries with the Boolean operators, And the last one in the series, which is more heavy duty and a lot more slides, it will be search with advanced operators. So this is how we're going to run it. And this is exactly the shape and form in which you will find it in your Dropbox. Next thing I'd like to do is to introduce you to the Dropbox, which I should have done in the first class, but it's not too late. So let me get to it and show you some of the folders which are more important than others, or they're the ones that we'll be focusing on for the material that's in them. And there'll be others that I'd specifically mention as being, reference guides or things that you can later on use after the course gets done. We'd probably not get into those folders, but they're there because there's important material for you. Like I said, it's a reference material and not for the core course of CIRS. So let me just quickly get to that. I think my screen for the Dropbox would look a little bit different. Okay, but it will be practically the same material and the names of the folders is the same. basically I'm accessing your Dropbox, but the format would look slightly different. Okay, so here it is. Okay. Now, one of the things that students do is they try to attempt final exams. I would say that for now, you can look at it just to get to know what it looks like, but you shouldn't be attempting those questions right now. And there is a reason to it. Without explaining on why I'm saying that, or maybe it will come during the lectures. For now, I just recommend not to get there. There is practice exams. The thing about practice exams is that once we get done with the modules, it's a good idea that after we finish, you should get to those questions. Otherwise, it could be a bit confusing. And the thing that I sort of get entangled into is that when students start to ask questions on topics or things which are not complete, or things that are basically part of the practice exam, but we may not have discussed it yet there in the book. So it throws us off the off the track. So again, the CRS final exams and the practice exams, hands off for now, I'd say, just a recommendation. Then this one, which says CIRS Training Guide 5.0, this is the main book that we would be following for the course, for the entire course, actually. And this is where everything starts and ends, meaning that anything that I'm discussing in the class, or any of the questions that come in the exam, they're all inside of this book. And this is how it looks like: Internet Research Training Guide. So this is your core book, or um, I guess something that you have to focus on, and not get distracted with the other books that will follow, which I'll also show you. But this is the main one, and this is held in your CRS training guide. In this folder, you will also find, because they are copyrighted and they are protected, so they have a password. In the sense of how you would be using the password, first of all, the password is separate from the book, meaning that it's a separate file. It's a notepad, and it says password here. So if you click on it, there you would find a password, and you will open this in PDF. So good idea is to download it first and then open it locally on your machine instead of doing it online, because it's not your browser or your internet speed that is going to make it difficult to open at times. It's always best to use your local machine. Besides, if you open it in your local machine, it will also allow you to print the book. So some of you may want to print. You don't have to print the entire book. You can print some chapters, things that are important to you. You can do that, but it's best to download first. Okay. And then we go to the next folder. Now, these are class notes. These notes are usually important when we are doing something like whiteboard, and I'm explaining it on a notepad or something that can be saved. Like, these are not prepared notes from before. This folder means that we are going to only put notes which we do in the class, or like examples and some queries that we formulate. All those will be placed inside of this folder. So right now it is empty, it has nothing in it, because we haven't come to that where I start putting them. So there is nothing in there. Then class schedule, you may want to mark your calendars with the class schedule. At times we may have to reschedule, like the previous class we missed. So we'll accommodate all that in the schedule. Course syllabus. Okay. Syllabus is just going to give you a sort of a guideline or a roadmap to where we are and where we need to get two for different modules that we'll be completing. So you can open this. This is also PDF. Now, the one that says ebooks complimentary, this can cause a bit of confusion because it's not those kind of books that are part of the course, but they're reference guides. So let's open it and see what I mean. Like I have online investigative research training study notes for anyone who is interested in doing a bit of, in-depth, basically due diligence or trying to extract some information on someone or something, background checks, verifications of, multimedia, like could be video, could be news, all those kind of specialized kind of researches of investigative nature. So they will be in this book. This is the book that I have actually compiled. Basically, I'm the author of this book. So if you have any questions, you can ask me. And this is, since this is not the same as the training guide, it's not the course itself or part of the course, but indirectly, it does somehow complement each other, like the training guide and this book. Okay. And this is given to you for free. Usually we sell it on the eShop, but it is available to you. Again, when you get into this, you will need to use the password. There is some of these books that could be helpful and useful for especially those who are writers or journalists, or it's a hands-on experiences shared in these books of scenarios, situations where the actual events took place and research needed to be done on the internet and data was extracted. So what were the methods and how was those information sets um, collected? So it is a kind of a mix of things, but they are very interesting. And because these are reference books, you can think of these as good to have, but not necessary for you to read. And these are not part of the course or the exam. Okay. Then we have the PowerPoints. These PowerPoints are in the PDF format. And like this one, for instance, if I open this, let's see what we have. So we have all of these different ones, but I'm going to replace each one of them with the ones that I prepared for you. So it's not like it's going to be missing what you saw, or if you had reviewed these, it's not going to be anything less than or missing parts. Rather, it's more on the additive side. So there is whatever I'm replacing it with, it will be perhaps more organized and something that you can follow after the lecture to see where what we did, or if you have to revert back to what we discussed in the class. So for that reason, I'll be replacing it. But like I said, you can still use these. They're more or less the same, not a huge difference. Then let's go down further. See these recordings right here. There is still a bit of a confusion for those of you who are looking for the previous recordings or the recordings for the previous lectures. You will find these in this folder. So let's suppose we did our first class on May 26th, which was last Friday. And for that, we should have a recording in there. So let's click on this and tell you where the recording is and how to access it. So this is just a text file or notepad file. If you click on this, by the way, all of our recordings are actually uploaded on YouTube. These are private links. Shouldn't be sharing it with anyone. At the same time, these can be, you can think of these as edited links or edited recordings, meaning that, we just sort of them or perhaps organized it better for you. And the process between the time that it takes for us to finish the lecture and when it actually gets edited and uploaded is about 24 hours. So this is the best. And at times we do miss our target and it goes to the next day. So just be mindful that if you don't see it within 48 hours, then there is a issue. If not, then you can expect this to be available to you within 24 hours. The link that is going to take you there is this one, for instance. Similarly, when the next one gets recorded, see this one says class 1 and the date is mentioned. The second one will follow, which means it's going to be exactly same set of info. The difference is it will say class number 2 and then there'll be a link under it. So all you do is you copy and paste the link and it'll take you there. And so the itinerary or the recording is itemized on this notepad in your recording folder. Okay. Now here is another one. It's called research information reference. Research information reference is just a collection of important aspects or concise and important information for those who are looking to find or to get location of where to get that information that you're looking for. So it is actually, it's going to look like this. Again, it has got a password. But and there is a password here. So let me copy this. What this book will help you with is to, if you want to use it as a reference, for instance, and you're doing this search, you're not, interested in module 3 or 4, meaning internet law or business of internet research. Let's say that's not as important as doing the actual research. You may use this book as a reference, and it is perhaps going to have more of the content that is extracted from the main book. The main book being training guide, the one which is what you're going to be using for your CRS exam preparation. So that exact book has the content that's been extracted mainly from module 2 and placed in this book. So if you are focused on just doing hands-on research, maybe this could be easy for you to get to those, research references, like how to, do certain queries, how to, find certain information, certain, I guess it's going to give you a direction to where to find certain type of information. So that's what it is. Let me see if I can open it just to show you how it looks like. This takes a lot of time. I haven't provisioned a lot of, you know, time for this. So let's see if we can quickly go through rest of the folders. So this is how the book is going to look like. The important thing about this book, which is of most interest to me, is the like in chapter 6, it says it is got a listing of specialized search engines, directories, and other resources. So it is going to actually give you a list where you can find, there are these typical search engines, which is main search engine versus the ones that are looking for certain type of files, others that have got AI built into it, and so on and so forth. But it is going to be your choice as a researcher to figure out which of these or which area of research you want to get to, and to find the kind of these helping tools like specialized search engines for that specific type of research area, like academic, science, and so on, blog search engines. All of these are actually listings. When you click on these, you will see what I'm talking about. So let's suppose I click on academic. You can see that we have made a listing with the headings, and they're very much describing the type of research directories or the research search engines about physics. So if it has to do with physics, if you click on this, you will find the search engine which is specifically focused in in the kind of directories or the venues where you can even forums are there where you can find interest groups or specialized databases on physics. And so it continues, but it is for you to explore. We are not going to discuss at length on what it contains, but generally speaking, as I said, these are reference books, and you can explore these later if you'd like. Uh, Not even necessary that during the class lectures we have to get to these, or probably have nothing to do with them. Then we've got other resources. These are again references, but they are more, um, I guess, like online verification tools for investigators, for instance. This booklet would give you, as I've showed you before in the previous one, in the previous book, it is going to be a directory or a listing with the links that can be easily navigated to for finding tools to find to verify certain type of data or certain type of multimedia. So that's where you can find this. Again, specialized search engines. It's sort of extracted from the previous book. So basically, these are components that are mixed or pulled from all those different types of knowledge database that we have um, in our data, um, in our libraries. There are rules, agreement, policies you may be interested in, but I'm I'm not. Then we've got WS training guide. See this one at the very end, at the very bottom, is got the content which I would have deleted this one, but I left it because I thought maybe it could come in handy. What WS means is web search training guide for some of the students that are only specifically interested in doing searches and not interested in doing CRS. Usually just read through this guide or this book, which is basically pulling all the relevant chapters from the main training guide, um, that has to do with learning how to build search queries. So for that reason, I feel that it could come in handy, but not necessary for you to look into while we are using the main training guide. Again, this is your main training guide. So I'd suggest to download it. I'll be using the training guide during the lectures and mentioning some of the chapters as well, or giving you references on what to study next. So that's going to be opened in any case. So I think that concludes everything about the Dropbox. For any one of you who's going to catch on this session through the recordings, please pay attention to this segment so that there is no confusion and I don't keep getting emails asking questions which otherwise I would have, which I have already answered. Okay. So if any question right now, I think, who do we have? Uh, there's Hannah, there is Tristan and Brett. So any question I can answer for this Dropbox? If not,
None for me.
let's, okay, thank you. So I think we can get started with the main topic that we'll cover today, which is these slides I'm going to start with. Today, I'm going to take a break slightly earlier because I have to make a short phone call. So in next 5 to 7 minutes, we'll take a short break, 10 minutes, which is little earlier than usual. It usually is after an hour through the lecture, but I have to do it slightly early. So just got a question in the, no questions. Okay, Hannah, thank you. All right, so let's get an intro. See, this chapter is important for us to get the concept or start to comprehend some of the major aspects of artificial intelligence, more on the mechanical side of how the search engine thinks or is programmed to think, uh, how it starts to interpret your language or the way you write, put your sentences or phrase something. Um, some of it is programmed, other is a learned knowledge by the search engine. And then um, from the aspect of user experience, the search engine has a kind of a, a kind of a mindset, you could say, which simulates that you simulates intent translation of a human brain by interpreting your questions or your way of writing, um, the mm, gives it a kind of a bias in the sense of how it would impose or assume or insinuate certain things or situations and bring the result based on that, meaning that it is an implied intent. It is not exactly expressed as you would put it in the search query or in your mind as human being. You would have imagined it to be understood in a certain way. But on the other hand, the search engine would like to think of it or interpret it slightly differently, or would have an element of implied um, context that it would give to that search query, just because it has been programmed to do so. Um, and it is more um, a kind of a forced result. And that's why we call it an implied context. So we'll talk about express context, which is how it understands the language versus how it imposes or assumes certain interpretations on its own. That's what we'll be discussing. So I'll just take uh, 10 minutes right now. Okay, everyone, I'm back. Uh, I just need a nod from you to make sure that you can hear me and the screen is clear. You could see my desktop. All good to go? Brad, Hannah, Kristen.
I've already been on camera and gave you a thumbs up.
Okay, thank you. All right, I didn't see that. There we are. Thank you very much. So let's start with this context, uh, what it means for the search. Context in search for intent translation. That's the topic. Okay, so in the textual search, because we're dealing with natural language translation, and it has its roots in the science of linguistics, and there is tons of complexities in how one's language is interpreted mechanically. So what the three formats or three ways in which the semantics is the intelligence of understanding the language. That's the simplest way of explaining it. There are three types of semantics that we'd like to, um, for simplification, we just look at these three types first and understand what it does. So there is something called formal semantics, um, which is actually defined here. It gives sense, or it gives reference, or it makes sense out of combination of words. Then we've got something called lexical semantics, which is purely to do um, with the words or the meaning of the words. So it is more literally just the definition of the words. That's lexical semantics. Conceptual semantics is making sense out of expressing one's thoughts, and this is more profound and more in depth. So that is conceptual semantics. We just want to um, give a reference to these three types for now, and there could be many others, but they're important for the exam. So in the questions that you will encounter, you would see that they would be asking or giving you a multiple choice of answers to give against the naming of these three different types. The next concept is machine learning, which is where it is a collective wisdom of learned intelligence from the usage of the internet, with reference to how people phrase their queries or phrase keywords, put them together. So it is more on the side of learning, which is automated process. So the machine learning is what is uh, also considered as another type of intelligence, which goes beyond just the lexical or formal semantics or those types. So this is where we are looking at uh, some of the outcome of our search results that says people also searched for, or people also asked, just as reference, or something which works as an assistive technology, which fills in some of the or gives references to some of the common ways in expressing those search phrases. So we kind of call them assistive technology or predictive technology. So that is coming from the machine learning intelligence. And you can read through it. It is a recording, notations that people use usually, like dollar signs, asterisks, etc. Search strand patterns, seasonal patterns. So it is learning from all of that. It is also something that we can relate to in terms of how it uses your search history, your current search history, your past search history. All those things are learned intelligence, and we call them MLI, or machine learning intelligence. Hmm. We'll get to the first part, which is the complications of an example, which is not appearing to you right now, but it's going to come later. So I'm going to look at the second segment, which is where we call a certain intelligence that is particularly named for bringing the search results, because it has its roots in the way in which words are um, supposed to default to, or their derivatives default to the base word, or to the word from which it branches out. As with the example, it's easier to explain. Like cheaper, for instance, it has its root to the cheap. So cheaper, cheapen, and all that is actually a derivative of the root word cheap. And this is one process which is mentioned as stemming process. And this is something that the search will do all the time, and we will encounter this term when we are learning about search keywords. So it is important to understand what stemming means. Stemming is a method or a process, and therefore it should be looked at as a method rather than just something which is, just the part of the intelligence. Then we have a lemmatization process. Lemmatization is the other sort of alternative or synonyms of certain words. For example, the word for wake, it could have different meanings, or it could be replaced by another word, but it would give it the same sense, or the understanding of it would be for the same sense in which it may be part of the phrase, or could be the keyword that you use. Yet, if it cannot find it as you have written it verbatim, it's going to look for its replacement or something like, for instance, it says, um, it wake can also mean wake up, or a vigil, or a funeral. So this is lemmatization. So these two processes are very important because it is happening all the time when you are writing your search words, and and if it doesn't find it in the manner or in the way that you have expressed it or written it in a search phrase, it is going to start to do its stemming and lemmatization. Then there is another phenomena which is actually come out from how the social media has impacted MLI, or learning for the search engine. A term that we use, ontology, is what we got introduced as an added intelligence to the semantics. What ontology does is that it starts to create relationship between data sets that otherwise are unstructured or pairs dissociated, yet they make sense when you look at them for creating a relationship of some sort. So that relationship of, let's say, one person to another person, or one entity to a person, or something which it has collected as um, part of the collection of raw data to make it structured, just because it has mapped it or considered it as having a relationship with one another. To give you an example, let's look at the example here. Um, when you search Bart Simpson, for instance, strangely, in the search, when you use the word Bart Simpson, it starts to bring all sorts of results that brings data, or it brings kind of information which is connected with the family of Bart Simpsons. Like, it would know that Bart Simpson has a cat, has a dog, siblings. All of these are connected, or somewhat it is a kind of a memory that's created just because a user as famous as Bart Simpson um, is actually using for doing searches to create that relationships. And this is where you've heard of big data, right? That's a kind of a raw data that's scattered all across the internet. Yet it is something that out of that data, raw data, the search engine based mapping the habits or the typical searches, that the relationship with an individual or an entity, or human or non-human, all that wisdom is collected, and it is considered a memory that can be repeated or can be used by the internet to deliver something to the user for better search experience. So that is the science of ontology for the search engine. So this is just introduction. So what ontology does is that it creates or it maps or it remembers the relationship, friends and families, business, work, colleagues, etc. Examples of semantics that we usually deal with, and we don't understand why some of the times our keywords are not actually coming up in the search results, yet it is delivering results that has those wordings but not used, may not be used in the same sense, or it may be a synonym or a replacement or something that has somewhat a similarity to what the intent would be without distorting the meaning or without changing the um, without um, changing the context. Okay, let's say it is the context. So context, for instance, in this search, now in the example that you're looking at, there is a query that says in title colon John Turner Carpenter Woodshop Brochure. Now, if you can just ignore in title colon and think of rest of the query as having these words but placed sequentially, none of these are within quotations, so they are kind of loosely placed, yet they are appearing as one single search phrase. So let's suppose if we write something the way it's written here, again, without worrying about in title colon, because we're not discussing the query operator. So just the wordings, what it would bring back to you are these results as an example. We are not doing the queries in the search box yet, because for this lecture and the one that's going to follow, it's going to be more on the theoretical side. It is to clarify the concepts. So therefore, you will observe it is more on the like we are not doing the actual queries, but the outcome of what you see is picked from the real results. So just to save time, we are not going to do that. But later on, when we are doing Boolean searches and others, we can do everything in the real browser. Okay, so continuing with this, you can see the word catalog appears in the search results in the description side. What catalog is replacing or what word is being replaced here is, I think, the word brochure. So instead of brochure, it picked up the word catalog, and it thinks the search knows that it could be, something to do with stemming or lemmatization. And then later there could be ontology aspects as well. So that concept has to sink in first for you to understand why a certain behavior in the search result is intended, because it is mechanically programmed under the concepts which we discussed. So first result, catalog. Second one, woodworking. So instead of wood shop, it assumed that it is woodworking. Pamphlet is a replacement for brochure. Carpenter's shop is actually replaced with carpenter's wood shop. So all these wordings are not exactly the same as you have placed within the search. I keep repeating that we are not using quotation marks only because quotation marks is an enforcer of something that tells the search to bring results that are exactly phrased, or everything that you put inside of the quotes has to remain intact as a search phrase, and therefore it's forced to bring verbatim exact as they appear in. So that's where we are not going to think of it as having a forced outcome. Okay, so what you're finding everywhere in the results is a process of stemming lemmatization. Another aspect of semantics, coming to the machine learning aspect, you would find that the search engine all the time is also preparing a list of learned results that are actually thought of or considered as having an impact in translating the usage of those words. For instance, short forms of Christian names. So if you use the name like Beth Mary Jones, it knows Beth is a short form or a short for Elizabeth. So it would have it in the list, the name that is prepared and compared, and therefore is actually showing up in the search result. In case if Beth Mary Jones, three words together are not easily available or they're not searched as much, perhaps the full Christian name Elizabeth is what is considered to be more commonly used, then it is going to bring or assume the full name like Elizabeth. Similarly, if, for instance, you use certain numerics like area codes of phones. So if I use 905 as a number, it would know that it is an area code, especially in North America. So you have to be mindful with the way you're going to use those numerics. It is going to assume that it is a telephone number or it is the code of that area. Similarly, if it is a country code, it would know. Even if it is zip codes, it would know. So if, for instance, I put the number or use the number 32835, it is a zip code for Orlando in Florida. Uh, it would know automatically through its learned system of machine learned intelligence that that is coming as a zip code. So it does that matching, and basically it has that information already in its database. How you phrase a sentence would have an impact also. So all the time you have to look at how you have written that search phrase. Like when two sentences have the same meaning. So, if you were um, an avid researcher doing a lot of searches using keywords and search phrases, you sort of gain that wisdom or that acumen to understand how or perceive how the search might interpret it. So you have to keep looking at how you have phrased your query. Like this one, two sentences have the same meaning, but the outcome would be different. The results would be different. Excuse me. I have a bit of a cough for some reason. The bird is bathing in the sink versus birdie is washing in the water basin. So, different people write their words differently or phrase their sentences differently. But, where two sentences have the same meaning, believe me, you'll still get different results. It just depends on how you have expressed that idea in two different ways. So sometimes when the sentences mean the same, but some critical details are different. So depending on how you have phrased it or how you wrote it, you will get information from different sources as if it is going to match or compare it with the idea that is written in a certain way in certain parts of the world. For instance, in news situations, army troops, for instance, attempt to invade Kabul in April of 2010. Now, this is intentionally written in a certain way, which you could see that this statement could be coming from someone who is, um, who is not very friendly with the U.S. Um, involvement in Kabul, for example. So it is politically somewhat written or intentionally written differently compared to the second one, which says US Army invaded the city of Kabul, Afghanistan in April last year. So the word invaded would have again come from somebody or somewhere where this word is frequently used from by someone who has bias or is anti-US, for instance, because it is a statement which could be, um, you know, which could bring you a result different from the one above it, and therefore you have to be very careful when you are actually putting it. You can get different sources from where this type of info or these type of words are used. Okay, where the two sentences mean the same but do not answer the critical question. So here is the example. It's two ways of writing the same thing, but it does not cover all aspects of what you're looking for. Like John said, he is a witness but not a suspect. And if you write it the other way, it also means the same, but it is written slightly different. John says he is not a suspect anymore within quotations. So if you are putting anything within quotes, you have to be mindful that it has to be exact same words that can match, or you know of these words or this phrase is correctly going to match exactly how it is written within quotation marks. So there is these sort of uh, similarities or somewhat ideas which are expressed differently by different people in phrasing those search queries. So what I'm trying to explain here is that semantics can go only so far. Okay, the rest will depend on how you're going to, or the style of your writing or expressing your thoughts in a search query using search phrases. This is how one of the problems of search engine about recognizing the questions that they have tried to tackle it in a sort of way which is actually not the semantics but an idea which supports the semantics of textual data. That's what I'm going to explain to you with the example of question 1, 2, and 3. Remember, search engine is not actually programmed to understand the question, or it is not specifically going to entertain the question mark as if it is supposed to give the answers like the chatbot. For now, you have heard of the intelligence that is coming up that understands the question, where in the chat GPT, for example, you have to write it as a question and it understands it as a question. But in the search engine, it doesn't do that. It just looks at the words, sequence of words, and it wouldn't understand things like, or words like what, where, when, how. Those are considered stop words. And therefore, it would not allow you to, or would not interpret it as a question. Okay. So what the search is now trying to do is somewhat come closer to recognizing the questions or a certain type of information that you search for, to think of it as a question that needs answering. Um, so the way they're going to overcome that is by looking at how someone has asked these questions. For instance, how are you? If that's what needs to be understood, it would mean that I am fine is the answer. This is simplest examples, and they're sort of too simple. In the second one, if it's the question says, how old are you? And the answer is, I'm 20 years old. The questions obviously are semantically different and the answers are different. But compare now question 2 with 3. If how old are you is answered the same way, where the answer says I'm 20 years old, but the question is written as what is your age versus how old are you, the questions are the same. So people ask questions in different ways. So, and the search would get confused as to what answer to bring back, because it's probably the same question, but it's asked differently. So the solution was to now look at the answer of what people find as acceptable, and then relate that answer to different ways in which people have asked the same question. So it is something we call semantically similar answers, or the similar answers would be connected to the questions. So if how old are you, what is your age, may I ask your age, or 10 different ways in writing those questions, but if the answer keeps coming back the same, and that's what the search has learned, it is going to try to match the answers with the question. So that's where we would think of it as semantically similar, or the questions are semantically similar. Okay, we've done this part. Implicit and explicit. Context and intent, that's what we need to differentiate. um, in the way in which these words, for example, in search query, two words, market research, are to be interpreted by the search, it is going to try to first understand the intent behind these two words, meaning that the search wouldn't know if it is a question or a definition you're asking for, or if you're looking for a job or hiring someone. So the intent part is missing when you're using these two words. And the search needs to know the intent. So every time you're writing a query, think of it as a set of words that should have an added words next to it, or there should be more of identifiable or related context that you attach to these two words, so the intent can be cleared, or the search would better understand the intent. So in these two words, it is missing the intent. For instance, it wouldn't know if you're looking for definition or a job or hiring someone. To make it more meaningful, you have to give it a context. That means you have to add more words to it so that it narrows down to precisely what you're looking for. And your intent is more clear by adding those contexts. So if you added the word jobs and Los Angeles, it knows that exactly what you're looking for. It is now a targeted search query. So context is these two words in red color. Once you put these in, it is also going to simultaneously do something that is called predictive technology. Prediction is what comes as a helping hand from the search engine. Like while you're writing something in the search box, it gives you list of ways in which people have asked questions based on the number of words you have used, or how you have phrased these words. So this is all predictive. When you submit the query, the results get returned, and the sequence in which they are laid in the SERPs, or search engine result pages, for instance, right here, has a sequence, or one sort of result has a precedence over another. In essence, it is the ranking theorem or the ranking algorithms which bring these SERPs or organizes them in the sequence in which you see them. It is assumed that any result that is coming on the very top is more um, or considered more uh, of a having a more prominence, or having more of these words in them. Or in the ranking theorem, there could be far too many signals that gives one result a kind of a preference over another. So the sequence of it in which it is showing right now would give the highest ranking to the first result versus the second, and so it continues. How the ranking system works, um, actually, that is a very complex bit of ranking signals, they call it. So the most prominent ones, or the ones that we need to focus on, that gives the ranking of to these results, are these four of the type of signals which we like to discuss rather than um, others. So let's suppose that these are some of them. One, for instance, is the authority of the page. So authority itself is again another set of attributes, or you could say preferential guidelines that are embedded in the algorithms, that says that to give authority to a page, it should come from a very authentic source, or a source that is tied up to, let's say, educational institutions or military or professional organizations, or it has a higher authority over others only because those pages have fresher, or it has the kind of information that is exclusively coming as as a news, or it is some content which is generated um, as knowledge, or it has a lot of outside links, or a lot of outside websites that are pointing to this page, or there is more frequency of people coming to this page. So it becomes more authoritative, and also depends on the author, if that author is reputable, and so on. So there could be so many of those, but we call it authority of the page. Then there is another signal we call freshness, because every time those robots and spiders go and query those links in the sitemap of those web pages, it looks and for freshest contents, or it looks for date and timestamp. It looks for a content that has changed or is frequently changing, and it is not plagiarized. It is an original work. So it is going to bring it, or think of it as something that is worth collecting. And so the freshness can add to or give a higher weightage in terms of ranking for those pages to appear in the higher hierarchy of your search results. Then there is the element of originality that you can attribute to research papers, or scholarly papers, a famous author, or someone who is well known in the industry, who is producing that content. So that is originality. Then the popularity, where that web page is frequented quite a bit, and it has gained that sort of people querying, or coming to those pages, so it becomes more of a popular page. A lot of times popularity is based on um, what we call stuffing of words, or some of the keywords are placed in there, and those are faked or rigged web pages. But anyways, search engine has its own ways of figuring it out. But generally speaking, popularity is the frequency with which those pages are visited. So these four elements, we will uh, encounter them in the exams. That's why these are important. So just know that these four we have to focus on. And in your book, there are more that are discussed, but whatever we do in the class is actually uh, kind of a helping hand, or kind of a concept which is definitely going to be part of the exam, or if not for the exam that you took, perhaps they would come in different form when you give the exam the next time, or when you're retaking the exam. But nevertheless, we know that they rotate quite a bit in the finals. That's why this is important. So this is just a quick overview, give you, kind of, it tells you how we are progressing with or what we are going to be discussing next. So it is kind of an overview. So let's look at how search work with keywords. So it's telling you when you put your search phrases and keywords, it has these elements or these broad headings in these different um, tabs, which is actually just giving you, broadly a caption of what is to be remembered as a sequence of information that completes the context. One is that it is going to read textual data, meaning that we have already covered textual database versus traditional. So that part we have covered. Um, Search seeks relationship between words, so textual semantics we have covered. Then we've got search learns from experience and remembers, which is machine learning, predictive, suggestive search, which is what we have briefly discussed. And we'll do more on this side of predictive and suggestive. Then we've got searches understands user search intent. So, semantics, um, and all that we have looked at. One of the aspects of intent translation we're going to cover next when we are talking about implied context and expressed context. So this is just a overview of how we are progressing and what we have covered. We don't have to go through this chart. I don't think it's necessary, so we'll just skip this. So intent, context, and contextual meaning. There's a difference between context and contextual meaning. Context can be something that you add to what you have written as supportive words or supportive information, which sort of helps in intent translation. But contextual meaning is more on the cognitive side, or understanding in what sense it is used. And, again, the element of search engines capacity to impose certain uh, mm, assumptions or impose its own wisdom uh, in addition to what you have expressed in your search terms. So that is what the contextual meaning translates to, or what is the um, definition of contextual meaning. So just to explain it even better, we'll take an example of these two people when they are asking a question or they're looking for something as a search statement, assuming that these are the two ways in which they have written the search. This gentleman on the left, where I'm putting this cursor, you could see that it says Empire State Building height versus someone who wrote how high is the Empire State Building within quotes, assuming that it is now confined to, or it is focused on entertaining everything that is inside of the quotes. So the search now is more focused. So let's suppose in these two instances, how the search is going to interpret it. First thing the search will do is look at what is highlighted here in the yellow color as the anchor word, or we call it the primary keyword, or the word that is emphasized or considered as having a relationship with the rest of the words that are surrounding words, which is in the blue color. So Empire State Building is the subject, or you could say the assistive words or relational words, whereas height is the intent of what needs to be found with relationship to Empire State Building. So that's why it is highlighted in yellow color. So that's how the search is thinking. In the second instance, it says it has the same set of information except for the added words like how is the. Now, how is the is not going to make it look like a question. Search is going to ignore these, even though you've put them within quotes. But first default action, it's going to find it as a total statement, or every of these or all of these words intact in the sequence in which they're placed. If not found, it is going to ignore or drop how is the, because it is not as important as the word high with relationship to the Empire State Building. Okay. So whatever else that I'm not explaining in the slide, in the illustration, may not be as meaningful. So I'm just going to ignore it, or I'll think, and I know that you understood this part. So there is no need to go to the one that is the one that I'm not explaining. So don't think that it is intentionally dropped. Think of it as not being as relevant, or the concept is we don't want to duplicate something. Okay. Next is the context, the type of, see, contexts are of two types. As I explained, one is called explicit, the other one is called implicit. Explicit is what you write, or is physically expressed, or is written in the search box as a search phrase or keywords. So that is explicit, where you are sure of what you need, or you are specific to your need by expressing it explicitly. Now, in comparison, implicit is what the search engine assumes as giving it meaning on its own, or imposing set of conditions, or based on its learned experience. It is going to add more context to what you have expressed already, and therefore we call it an implicit context. And understanding implicit context is most important, because you have to also have the imagination, or have the kind of a sense or preconceived sense of knowing what set of information the search might impose. So just by knowing that fact, you may be able to overcome that bias, because it is inherently embedded in the algorithms, and there are ways of overcoming that and thinking of it as a barrier to your search. Exact sense in which you want to express it may be impacted because of it. So that's why we learned what could be the implicit factors. Okay. Now we'll start with explicit signals first. To first of all know the difference between the type of context, and to understand types, we would probably have to have a sneak preview of what is considered certain type of keywords. So we'll cover both of them, just because we have to do explicit signals. Okay, one thing about explicit signal is that it differentiates between the primary words, or the kind of words that cannot be changed, or by changing those words, the meaning of the search would be directly impacted. In other words, you cannot replace primary words. In the same sense, primary context mean that this is the context that you cannot do without. So therefore, those words cannot be moved, because it would then be counterproductive for the context to be understood for its reasoning and for intent translation. You cannot do those changes. Like the word height, for instance, and the word Empire State Building, both are related to each other. And by removing any one of those, you would be basically killing the concept, or would be you would be destroying the primary context. So both of those are primary context. And you know what I'm talking about when we did that example with Empire State Building. So though that part is considered primary, whereas secondary context is an added context when you don't get the right results or you don't get as focused results by putting the primary context or primary keywords, you would have to add a secondary context or put secondary set of keywords. So that is secondary context. This is the differentiator. Okay. Okay, so here we are. This is to do with the primary and secondary keywords, but let me just break out of this slide and I'm going to open up another PowerPoint that talks about the um, string of keywords or putting keywords together to build a search phrase. I will open that just to, I mean, instead of explaining it through this, I'm going to give you another slide um, that is more better understood. Okay, so I've opened the slides, search with keywords and search phrases. Okay. All right. So let's take this as an example. Primary keywords, and don't um, just think of these as if we are talking about the type of keywords that make the search phrase. So don't mix it with context yet. We'll get to it and connect with it after we get done with this keyword differentiator. One of the things when we build the search query, for instance, like this one, internet research industry as 3 words. Never mind the colors right now. It's not important. So let's suppose 3 keywords are used. And by the way, this parenthesis or these brackets that you see, they're just simulating an enclosure of search box. So it's not something that you have to actually physically put in your searches. And that's how it is going to be for the rest of the examples we'll do. So these brackets are only simulating the search box. Here we have 3 words, considering all 3 as having a meaning as a primary set of keywords. We would like to understand why they are considered so, why they are all primary. Think of it as a search that is looking for the internet research industry or information about the industry that is to do with internet research. Okay, so if I replace or remove any of the words from these 3, like if I remove research, would internet and industry uh, give the same meaning, or just these 2 words without the word research give it the same meaning in the sense in which we have used the word research or 3 words together? I don't think so. Just internet industry would mean something different. We are talking exclusively about internet research industry. Same way, if I remove the word industry and just use these 2 words, internet research, it could mean anything, just like we did market research previously. It didn't have the complete context, or the intent was difficult to translate. So by removing any of these 3 words from the way we have written it, or in the sequence in which we have written, or just even by changing, like industry, we can change with something else. Even that would have an impact. Um, Truly speaking, all 3 words have to be there and remain intact in the same sequence for it to um, to to um, to give it the sense, or for the search to understand in what sense it is used. And therefore, just because we cannot do away with or replace any of these 3 words, all 3 are considered primary keywords. What we can add to this is secondary keywords to give it even a better context. or make it more supportive for the previous three keywords, or the primary keywords needs a support of secondary keywords, which we would call an edit context. So in the sense in which these three words are used, they're primary context. But let's suppose we need to know what the secondary keywords would be. We need that differentiator when we are actually allocating the work, let's say, to our colleagues or delegating it to our staff, because a lot of times we are not doing the research. We can only give guidelines, we can give instructions, and time is money. So you don't want, and there is a tendency for people to get lost while doing their searches and lose their way. So just to give them the proper parameters of how they are going to use keywords, or which of those keywords are primary, which are secondary, and then later there is others which are more granular, like modifiers, tail, and so on. We'll also talk about that. But supposing we understand what the primary and secondary keywords are, we are going to give a very definitive direction to whoever we are delegating the search. Even for ourselves, we need to stay focused. So primary keywords. Now secondary keywords are added words that are supportive or support the primary keywords. In these, in this box, you can see that we have given 6 examples. The first one, internet research training, for instance. Now, first, and I'm sure, first, I don't want you to look at secondary keywords to match with or have relationship to these three keywords. Okay, so that don't get that idea. This is separate. The way we are explaining it is different because the intent uh, of how words are placed together is different. Here we are looking for training, for certification, where we can learn research training and so on. So this is where we are focused on. So that's with that intent, we'd like to differentiate between primary and secondary keywords while finding those training venues. Let's suppose in the first one, the two words internet research, they are considered primary because this is the subject or the main topic or the main area of what we are looking for. And in terms of internet research, we are looking for training. This is in purple color, you could see right here. Similarly, in the second case, these two primary keywords are supported by the word certification. And the third one, it is replaced by the word education. So in all three of these, you could see that these are substituted, replaced, or basically you have you are given the leverage of um, changing these or adding to it. And therefore they are supportive in nature and not considered primary, yet they are important enough that if you don't find the right results in the first instance where you've used the word training as a secondary keyword, you can always use the word certification or education. So it is differentiated only because internet research is the subject and cannot be changed, whereas the secondary keywords are supportive of primary and you can change, substitute, or add to. Okay. So these two are first thing we what we when we have to delegate or differentiate. Second is the different elements when we want to, when we want to do a broad search, meaning that we don't use too many keywords, yet some of those keywords are important enough that we need to be able to dissect them into their um, elements of what we call head, modifier, and tail, um, that has a meaning for those who are doing searches with specific words in the broad sense to find results that are broad in the sense that there are far too many results because you're not sure exactly of what words to use, yet the broader words are bringing more of the choices where you can actually narrow it down further. So when you're starting with a broad search with limited number of keywords, you want to make it more detailed, and specific as to what could be considered as head word, modifier, or tail word. Excuse me. Now, what is head, modifier, and tail? In these three words we are using, again, internet research certification. The first word, internet, is considered head. And this is for explanation. It could get even more complicated. We've used, the least number of words that would express the thought or the idea behind what I'm trying to explain. So just three words we are playing with right now. The first word I call internet because without the word internet, these two words, research and certification, would not have a meaning or would not have the context. And therefore, internet is considered head or primary keyword. Whereas the second word, research, is a modifier, where what modifier does or what it allows for the researcher to do is to substitute it with another word, not to just remove the word, but substitute it with something similar. So the word research is what we call, or we allocate it or give it an attribute as a modifier. Okay. Um, and then the last one, we call it tail, or the word certification. Here is a tail word, which means that it is the kind of word which can be added to, can be taken off totally, um, can have more variants of the word certification. So it is the most flexible word, or the tail word is not only flexible, but you can add more, as many tail words as you want. Whereas the modifier, as I said, cannot be removed, but can be edited for replacing it with a better word or different word. Internet cannot be replaced or substituted in any way. So head, modifier, and tail, three are making it even more detailed and more dissected. Um, and the sense in which we have used primary keywords, like I said, don't forget, I'm sort of relating it in the same way as the word internet being a head word, to be similar to or considered as a primary keyword. And modifier and certification together can be secondary keywords in the broader sense. Okay, so what happens when we are looking at how it is expressed or how the terminology is set for two ways in which we can consider search to have a broad um, intent or broader results to be intended versus more um, more refined search or more focused search results, that could be more words or more tail words added to it, or added context that makes it a longer search phrase. So the longer the search phrase, or with more context and more tail words, it's more focus, less results, but only when your intention, or when you know your variables, or when you are sure of how to articulate that search phrase, or if you remember it exactly as it is to be found. So that could be something we call narrow search or long tail search. So what is broad search versus targeted focus search or long tail? That's what this example is going to explain. Okay. So in the first instance, you could see least number of words are used. And then we have layered it to explain it further. So let's look at what short tail means, first of all, and then look at the two steps which are shown here as having the first row and then the second row. So what is a short tail? Short tail simply means that least number of words for broader search results. That's what short tail means. I don't know why they call it short tail, but it is a method we call broad search. When we are doing exploratory search, where we're exploring something, the idea, thought, or a subject that could have subset of information, we do broad search. We use least number of words. So that is why we call it a short tail. Long tail, in contrast, means more number of words, more context, more padded tail words. to make it more focused, and we call it long tail or targeted search words. So that's just the terminology. In the sense in which we are going to identify head, modifier, and tail in the broad search as shown in this example, again using the same three words. Now, with these vertical bars, don't think of it as having any meaning for how you have phrased something. In the search box, think of it as three words put together in the same sequence. And same example is being carried forward with these three words. So let's suppose we have head, uh, modifier, and tail. And we start with these three as the first instance of our search. First of all, the thought or the notion that the search results would come in exactly the same as intended in the first go, or the first time that you get your results, you expect that it is going to be accurate. I don't think so. In my experience, it never happens exactly when you're doing something of as a professional researcher. You don't take it as the end of your search. It is just the beginning. That means that you will have to refine your search further, and it becomes like a process, and eventually there is a method to it. And that's what we will be discussing eventually when we get done with the search queries. Then we come to methodologies of how to do the or how to refine your searches. Okay, so with that intent, with the methodology, one of the things that we do is that we start to play with the words in how it is expressed in, again, coming to the same example. So back to these three words: internet research certification, where it is separated as head, modifier, and tail. You can go to this next level, and you could then start to make some changes where you would consider internet and research as clubbed together, or together these two words would make a small search phrase, and you can make it into a head word, which means don't change any of this, and you move the second word, which is modifier, and make it come right next to um, or I'm sorry, I should have said it slightly differently. Where we have consumed these two or used these two words, internet research, in as a head word, now we are left with a modifier. So what we can do is we can promote the word certification from the tail to a position of a modifier, meaning that we can substitute, add, and sort of start to move around. But I did all the time making it a controlled search by being specific to what is become a modifier or what is considered head words. So, like I said, coming back again, I get questions: what is the utilization of this concept? Why do we have to learn this? I mean, uh, what could be the actual practical utilization of this sort of way of expressing or differentiating? Whole the time and effort of your someone working for you, you would have to organize it in this way. So you're not giving a lot of opening or a lot of levy to anyone who does not know exactly what words are more important or less important, and what are modifiers or tail, and so on. So this is the main utilization of this knowledge. Anyway, we'll have to get back to the primary and the secondary context. We sort of wanted to cover this so that the context part can be understood better. So I'm going to break out of this again and go back to the same context slides. Now, in the next session, the next class, we will discuss more on the implicit context. We couldn't cover it. It's a kind of a lengthy subject, but it is very useful. It is going to give you a lot of information on how the mind of the search engine thinks, or where the algorithms are working. We can predict more better some of the implicities of its imposed biased bias. So that's where we're going to get to next. Let me break out of this one. In fact, close this one. Okay, so this is it. This is what we were discussing. So coming back to the context. Now, in the same way, we are going to now look at primary context is the same as primary keywords, meaning that context is the terminology given to the expression of information that cannot be changed. Otherwise, it is going to distort the meaning of the search term. So in this chart, we are looking at what we have viewed earlier when we are doing keywords, like the head, for instance, like these two keywords. Internet research is a primary context. What used to be primary context in instance one, where we are doing short tail. You see this cat with a short tail, and this is long. So this is short tail. The primary context would have been the word internet, but in the second instance, we have clubbed these two together with a modifier added to the head. Now becomes internet research, and it is also called a primary context. Secondary context, where the certification now became a, which was a tail word, now became a modifier. So this position is changing, or one word is getting promoted, the other one is depreciated or given more weightage by calling it primary versus others less weightage, secondary. So this is how the keywords keep moving, and the primary and secondary context is differentiated. Ah, okay. So when we are doing the implicit signals, let me give you an idea about what implicit means for the search, and then we'll get into the detail. There's a plenty of slides we'll have to run to get the concept more well defined. And you could see that we have quite a bit of slides to cover. So for this reason, since we won't be able to finish it in this session, and because we need to maintain the rhythm of it, or the way in which we are going to continue the flow. I don't want to, start something which I cannot finish in that one go, just to maintain that sequence. So we'll get to it in more details in the next session. But for now, just to give you an idea what implicit signals or assumed signals, something that the search is going to look for is your location. For instance, if you are or your where you're browsing from, it is going to give you more of a localized results. It is going to look into your search history. There is two types of search histories: short term, which is where you started a session, you didn't log out of it. And I'm talking the session, meaning that I'm talking about using a browser like Chrome. Once you use it, or you have registered to it, it is it remains open every time you click on it. It assumes that you are the same user if it's the same machine, and so it just sort of connects with your information running in the background. So that session sort of is considered short term or continuous session because you have not logged out of it. Usually we don't even log out of it. That's what we call short term history. Long term history is when you use some other machine, or you browse, logged out and you haven't used it for some time. And so it could be many ways in which previous history or a long term history is collected. And then between the long term and the short term history, there are certain information sets that are connected to the main environment or the main servers, which feeds those servers and remains there as a broader information on you as a user, versus another set of info which is used or considered for the browser to contain in its own software or its own application, on your browser, on your machine, for mm, being used as a reference or as an implicit signal for the searches that you're going to do. So these are, some of the ways in which we're going to differentiate and look at how those information sets are distributed. Then you've got, the devices information, what kind of, you know device you're using. Smartphones is your preferred browsing, you know um, uh, piece of equipment, or whatever it may be. But for any of these, or the ones that are listed here, there could be so many ways in which these informations are play a part in giving an implicit kind of a sense for the search, to apply those signals, as having a contribution to your explicit um, search terms, by making it more biased, by imposing something or bringing results different from somebody else who is probably doing the same search, but doing it on their browser using their machine. So this differentiator, or this sense of how those results are impacted, is is coming from the implicit signals, or the contributor for bringing different results is the implicit signals. And like it is mentioned here, the contact information associated with users personal contact info, as well as information about. So there are so many things that you give away. This information that you do give, some of it is mandatory, others is discretionary. Some of the ways in which you are using the privacy settings of your browsers would have an impact also. So there are ways in which you can actually either give away a lot of info, or do it in a controlled way, or a part of info which is given out in any case as a privilege for the Google, or those browser vendors to contain or to keep, for in exchange for using their services or their applications. So all sorts of ways in which it is collected. Some of the ways I didn't think, even I was not sure why would they collect some of the information which is nothing to do with what we give away intentionally, as if it is a registration or an account that you open with those browsers, that we understand and we know in our conscious mind that we are giving that info voluntarily. But with those browsers come other services or utilities like calendars, like favorites, bookmarks, and even emails. And I thought that that is sort of a kind of freebies that we get, just to be attracted to, or to use it as a preferred tool, not knowing that even that information is used in so many ways by those browsers, to not only be used for whatever purposes they use it for. One of them is marketing, of course. Other one is just collecting about enough information to know if some of their services are doing well, whatever the reason may be. But most importantly, we didn't think that it was important enough that they would look into our calendar or look at our email accounts. But I don't want you to think that we are exposing our privacy to an extent where they would even know, for instance, in our email accounts, they wouldn't know who we are sending emails to, but they would know the usage of the user of that platform. They would know the frequency with which you use it, or what time of the day you use it. That information at a very you could say at a meta level, that is what is important for them. So they don't actually tap into or go as detailed into your privacy, but they do collect a piece of that. And then second thing is that they use that info in some way to bring the results back to you, with ways in which it creates that relationship, to give that better user experience, as they put it, or to give it um, a context on its own. So your purchase histories, your bookmarks, and all these are considered as implicit signals. And there are other signals also. I mean, we cannot put all of them in this slide, but there is another slide which also I will introduce at this point, just to give you a foresight of how detailed we are going to go in this area. Um, this one, for example, this chart. This is the chart that is going to explain more detail of exactly the type of info which is responsible for bringing those implicit signals as having an impact. So this chart is going to explain what happened. So this chart is going to explain all of that, like short and long-term history, three forms of history of your, or the behavior of your usage of that browser, is going to collect information like internet browsing data collection, like long-term and short-term profile and personal info, communication data. And then it's going to have a flow, which you will see that as it absorbs that information from these three different boxes, or each of these boxes have a more detailed information sets that are defined. For instance, in internet browsing, short-term history, this is listed over here. Same way, profile and personal history, go to the next one. It is going to talk about what is included in this. This is a whole list of it. And so we will get into the details. And as the chart starts to bring you down through these arrows, you could see it takes you to different layers of info, how this top level info gets seeped into the second layer, and the second layer would seep into the third, and eventually to the fourth, and so on. So this process of how the information is going to flow in order for the search engine to make sense of it as more individualized and more customized experience for the user, in the guise of better user experience, with the implicit context added to it. That's going to be the story for us for our next lecture. So with this, I think, unless you have any questions for me, I would think that we would start with the next session, talk more details on context. Too much information, eh? How is the pace of my explaining things? Is it too fast, too slow? We can always fine tune it. It just depends on how all of you would like me to, deliver it. I can go slow, or I can go fast, or if you need me to pause a little bit for you to have that room to ask questions, please feel free to let me know so you can guide me through these sessions. I'm open to suggestions always. Brad, how about you? All going okay for you so far?
It's going fine.
So it makes sense, eh? Whatever we discussed so far, sort of.
We're still pretty basic stuff. I'm kind of looking forward to getting down the road a little bit.
I see. So you want to get to the search queries like everybody else, I guess everybody's keen to get to that. What is it that is most interesting for you, or most useful for you, Brett? Just out of curiosity, so I can probably
Oh,
bring those as more emphasized.
I don't really know. I'm just going to follow the course material as it is, and
Mhm.
see, go forward.
Yeah, because remember, some of it, if it sounds a little bit kind of redundant, boring, or something that you already learned or know of, thing is that if they come in the exam and if you want to do your CIRS exams, these are some of the things which seems like a bother, but eventually, if they come in the question, or how
Sure.
it's that's a problem, and unfortunately, I have to go through all of it irrespective. So at times, it is one of those things. So bear with me when we are doing all these things, and trust me, I mean, even a lot of people don't know at least some of the stuff you may have looked at for the first time, or it may be a revision for you. Anyway, let's carry on then. Tristan, I didn't hear from you. I was wondering if I can get sort of your sense of how you would think, and if you're following it. And thank you, Tristan. Hannah, is it Hannah? Anyway, I think I'll let you all go. It's way late here in on the East Coast, so I'll see you next time, day after tomorrow. It's going to be Friday session. So thank you again. We'll do our best to get this recording up on the in your Dropbox. Take care. Bye bye for now. See you.